Alright, this is the video of the test redo, so you can get extra points on the Chapter 7 test if you wanted to do it. As I go through this video, I'm going to tell you certain things so that I know that you watched the video. I'm going to tell you to write down certain letters at the top of your paper, so you'll have to go back and write down a letter. And then at the end, there'll be a bonus question that you will unscramble those letters, and you'll have to do that bonus or you won't get credit. Question number 1 says find the geometric mean between 20 and 5. So we set up this proportion with the geometric mean there and the geometric mean there, and the two numbers they give us, one on top here, one on bottom over here. So your proportion looks like this. We cross multiply, x squared equals 100. Take the square root of both sides, and you end up with x, which is your geometric mean, is 10. If your name starts with a vowel, if your name starts with a vowel, your first name starts with a vowel, A, E, I, O, or U, you need to write the letter O at the top of your paper. Write the letter O at the top of your paper. Number 2, they give us a picture. It looks like this. You got a right triangle, then you got an altitude drawn to the hypotenuse of that right triangle. So we're going to use one of our either leg or altitude proportions. Since we're dealing with the altitude here, we have that x on the altitude. That means we're going to use the altitude one, which is the easier of the two probably. So the altitude is the geometric mean. It goes here and it goes there. The hypotenuse part 1 goes here, hypotenuse part 2 goes there, so that's 4, that's 16. We don't have to add them together, any of that. That's only when you're doing the leg. We cross multiply, you end up with x squared equals 64. Take the square root, x equals 8. So that's answer number 2. I'm going to go through these sort of real quickly, because I don't want you to have to sit and watch this video for a real long time. Number 3. Number 3, they give us a picture. It looks like this. Got a right triangle. Another altitude drawn to the hypotenuse of that right triangle. That's x. This is 3. This is 8. This time we're looking for a leg, so we're going to use the leg proportion. The leg is the geometric mean, so it's going to go here and here. Well, the leg this time is x, so we put x there, x there. The top here is the whole hypotenuse, which is this whole thing. So you add those two together, you get 11. And then you want the hypotenuse part that's adjacent to the certain leg you're dealing with. Well, that's the 3 right here. So it goes down here. We cross multiply, you end up with x squared equals 33. Take the square root of both sides, and you end up with x equals about 5.7. I would have accepted either one of these answers. You could have put down just the square root of 33. That would have been fine. You could have put down 5.7. Either one of those answers would have been acceptable, since 33 is not a perfect square number. Number 4 says find x. Give you a picture. It looks like this. They tell you that this angle is 60 degrees. We draw in this, and that's an altitude in that triangle, but it's not going to be like these other ones. The last two were. This is a equilateral triangle, since this angle's 60 degrees, you got 12 there, you got 12 there. All we really need is one of the two triangles, because we split off this triangle and this angle's 90 and this angle's 60, then this angle has to be 30. So these two angles up here have to be 30. In this triangle, side across from the 30-degree angle, we label L. Side across from the 60-degree angle, L times square root of 3. Side across from the right angle is 2L. Well, we know that that 2L equals 11. Or equals 12, not 11. Divide by 2. L equals 6. If L equals 6, we can stick 6 right in there because we're looking for X, which is right there. The length that side is just going to be 6 times the square root of 3, which I should have been given the answers on these. Let's see, 6 times the square root of 3 is letter C. So that one's actually C. Let's go back up to number 3. Answer on number 3 was D. If we go back to number 1, I forgot that these were multiple choice. If we go back to number 1, the answer here was D. And number 2, the answer was A. If your name starts with a consonant, if your name starts with a consonant, so anything that's not a vowel, put the letter R on top of your paper. Put the letter R on top of your paper. Number 5. On number 5, says angle in triangle QRS, angle R is a right angle, which is the ratio for the tangent. Well, you got to remember the TOA part of your SOHCAHTOA. So tangent equals the O over the A, which is opposite, over adjacent, which in this case is letter D. Sorry, I had to look. So letter D. Number 6. Find the cosine of angle A in triangle ABC. So we have this triangle. There's 21 here, 75, 72. And angle A is over here. That's really the only angle we care about. So we label it according to that angle. That's going to be your opposite leg. That's your hypotenuse. This is your adjacent leg. And we want the cosine of angle A. Well, cosine is the C part of the SOHCAHTOA. So it's adjacent over hypotenuse. Well, for angle A, the adjacent is 72. The hypotenuse is 75. That's not one of the answers over there, but you can grab your calculator and reduce that down. And 72, just use your ABC button. 72 ABC, 75, hit enter, and it tells you 24 over 25, which is letter D. Your name starts with a vowel. Your name starts with a vowel. Put the letter L at the top of your paper. Number 7. Number 7. Give you a triangle, it looks like this. 67 degrees is that angle. This is 20, this is X. We're going to be using SOHCAHTOA, so we label the triangle according to that angle. That's your opposite leg. That's your hypotenuse. This is your adjacent leg. We really don't care about the adjacent leg this time. The trig ratio that deals with opposite and hypotenuse is sine, so we set up this equation. Sine of our angle, which is 67, equals, the SO part is opposite over hypotenuse, so this time it's X over 20. Take our calculator, and you find the sine of 67. Don't hit second. Get 0.9205 equals X over 20. Put a 1 underneath this. Cross multiply, you get just X. Multiply here. And you get about 18.4. Look at your paper, and that's letter C. Letter C. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter L at the top of your paper. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter L at the top of your paper. Number 8. Number 8, they give us this triangle. It's a 45, 45, 90 triangle. This side's 9, this side's C, and a 45, 45, 90. The side across from the 45-degree angle is labeled L. Side across from the other 45-degree angle is labeled L. Side across from the right angle is 2L. Or I'm sorry, that's wrong. Is L times the square root of 2. So we know L equals 9 from that side right there that they told us. And all we got to do is take that 9 and stick it back in there. So C there is 9 times the square root of 2. 9 times the square root of 2, which on your paper is letter C. Number 9 says find the perimeter of a square to the nearest tenth if the length of the diagonal is 16. So if we draw this square, we know from one corner to another is the diagonal, and that's 16 millimeters. Well, each one of these triangles, when you draw a diagonal in a square, is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So if we split one of those triangles off, this is 45, this is 45. We know this side's 16, the side across from the 45-degree angle is labeled L, side across from the other 45-degree angle is L, side across from the right angle is L times the square root of 2. We know that one this time. So L times the square root of 2 equals 16. Divide both sides to get L by itself, divide by the square root of 2. You end up with L equals, take your calculator and divide 16 by the square root of 2. And you end up with 11.3. So each side of the square is 11.3. We want the whole perimeter. So that means we got to add all those sides up or multiply 11.3 times 4. And I ended up with about 45.2. And that's because I rounded it off. Your answer on your paper should be letter B, 45.3. Number 10. I'll give you a triangle that looks like this. Tell you this side's 5, this side's 12, this is X. If you know two sides of a triangle and you're looking for the third, then you could use Pythagorean's theorem, a squared plus b squared equals c squared. Remember that this is your hypotenuse. It has to go where C is. So that's going to be x squared over there, 5 squared plus 12 squared. I wouldn't use Pythagorean theorem because I would recognize that this fits into one of our families or one of our Pythagorean triples. Leg is 5, leg is 12, then that means the hypotenuse has to be 13. Rewrite that. So the hypotenuse has to be 13, which on your paper is letter A. Letter A. If your name starts with a consonant, write the letter E on the top of your paper. If your name starts with a consonant, write the letter E. Number 11. Give us a triangle that looks like this. This is X, this is 17, this is 15. Same idea here. Use Pythagorean's theorem. This has got to be your C, so it's going to be 17 squared on the side by itself. Over here it's going to be x squared plus 15 squared. Again, I wouldn't use Pythagorean's theorem because I'd recognize that this fits in a family and know that x in this family, the hypotenuse is 17, the leg is 15, the other leg has to be 8. And for number 11, that is answer B. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter T at the top of your paper. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter T. Number 12. Which set of measures could represent the sides of a right triangle? Just looking at those, I know that the 9, 12, 15 actually fits in the 3, 4, 5 family. Because 3 times 3 is 9, 3 times 4 is 12, 3 times 5 is 15. So your answer on this one is D. Number 13. Again, you could have used Pythagorean theorem on that one. Number 13, they give us this triangle. This side's 6, this side's 6, this side is x. Well, if these two legs are the same, then that means these two angles both have to be 45-degree angles. So it's a 45, 45, 90. Side across from the 45-degree angles is L and L. Side across from the right angle is L times the square root of 2. Well, we know that L has to equal 6, so we just take that 6 and stick it back in there, and that's going to tell us what x is. So x comes out to be 6 times the square root of 2. And that is answer B. Answer B. If your name starts with a vowel, if your name starts with a vowel, put the letter R at the top of your paper. Letter R. Number 14. 14, they give us a 45, 45, 90 triangle. The side is 15 radical 2, and we're looking for this side, that's our y. Sides across from the 45-degree angle should be labeled L and L. Side across from the right angle, L times the square root of 2. Well, that tells us that L times the square root of 2 has to equal 15 times the square root of 2. Divide by the square root of 2 on both sides. These cancel out, and you're left with just L on that side. These cancel out, and you're left with just 15, so L equals 15. Well, that means that that side and that side both have to be 15, so y equals 15, and that is letter C. Letter C. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter A at the top of your paper. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter A. Number 15. The length of the sides of a square are 10 meters. Find the length of the diagonal. So we got this square. Each side is 10. We draw a diagonal in it. So that creates two 45, 45, 90 triangles. In a 45, 45, 90, the side across from the 45-degree angle should be labeled L. Side across from the other 45-degree angle, L. Side across from the right angle, L times the square root of 2. That's the part we're looking for. Here we know that L has to equal 10. Well, if L equals 10, we just take that and stick it in right there. And the length of that diagonal has got to be 10 times the square root of 2. You just put 10 in place of L. And it's meters. So our answer here is B. Your name starts with a consonant. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter A at the top of your paper. Put the letter A at the top of your paper. Number 16. Number 16, this time they give us a 30, 60, 90 triangle. And they tell us this side is 5, and we're looking for this side. In a 30, 60, 90 triangle, side across from the 30-degree angle is going to be labeled L, side across from the 60-degree angle, L times the square root of 3, side across from the right angle, 2 times L. Well, the one we know is this one, so we know L has to equal 5, nothing to really solve there. All we got to do is take that 5 and stick it back in there, so 2 times 5, which is 10. So we know X, that length of that hypotenuse has to be 10, and that's letter C, letter C. Number 17. Number 17, they give us another 30, 60, 90 triangle. We're looking for that side, and they tell us this side is 50. Side across from the 30-degree angle has got to be labeled L. Side across from the 60-degree angle, L times the square root of 3. Side across from the right angle is 2L. We know this side, so 2L has to equal 50. Divide by 2. You end up with L equals 25. You take that, and we're looking for this right here, so we just plug in 25 right there in place of L, and you end up with X equals 25 times the square root of 3. We look at our answers, and that's letter C. Letter C. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter G at the top of your paper. If your first name starts with a vowel. Number 18. Find X to the nearest 1/10 of a degree. They give us this. We're looking for an angle this time. You got 5 there, you got 9 there. We're going to have to use sine, cosine, or tangent, the SOHCAHTOA. Side across from the X is the opposite leg. Side across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. And the other side is the adjacent. We care about this one and this one this time, which is the adjacent and hypotenuse, which is the part of the SOHCAHTOA. So it's cosine of our angle, which is X, equals adjacent over hypotenuse, which is 5 over 9. If you're looking for an angle, then you grab your calculator and you hit second cosine, punch in that. You can use the ABC button, or you can use divided by. I'm just going to use divided by, so second cosine, 5 divided by 9, close the parenthesis, hit equals, and it tells me that the angle is about 56.3 degrees. We look at our paper here, and 56.3 degrees is letter A. Letter A. Number 19. If a 20-foot ladder makes a 65-degree angle with the ground, how many feet up the wall will it reach? So we need to draw a picture. Got our wall, we got our ladder. Makes a 65-degree angle with the ground, so that goes right there. This has to be a right angle, and it's a 20-foot ladder. and we're trying to figure out how far up the wall it goes. We're gonna have to use SOHCAHTOA again, sine, cosine, tangent. Label the triangle accordingly. This is the opposite leg. Your ladder side is your hypotenuse. This side's the adjacent leg. We really don't care about the adjacent leg this time. Opposite hypotenuse, that's the SO part of SOHCAHTOA. So that tells us we're dealing with sine, so we set up our equation. The sine of our angle, which is 65, equals opposite over hypotenuse. The opposite is x, the hypotenuse is 20. We take our calculator and we find the sine of 65, and it comes out to be 0.9063 equals x over 20. Put a 1 underneath that, we cross multiply and end up with x. And then we cross multiply the other way. It's going to give us our answer. Comes out to be about 18.2. 18.1, should have rounded off probably a little bit, which is letter C. Letter C. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter S at the top of your paper. If your name starts with a consonant, the letter S. Problem 20. Problem 20, they give us this picture. Got a right triangle, you got a altitude drawn to the hypotenuse of that right triangle. This is X, this is 3, this is 10. We're looking for a leg this time, so we're going to have to use that leg proportion. Leg proportion says the leg's got to go here, leg's got to go there. Up top here is the whole hypotenuse, which is this whole thing. 10 plus 3, which is 13. And then the part of the hypotenuse that's hooked to that leg, which in this case is 3. Cross multiply, you get x squared equals 39. Take the square root. 39 is not a perfect square number, so I would accept the answer as square root of 39, or if you took your calculator and took the square root of 39, you end up with 6.2. 6.2. Number 21. They give us a triangle that looks like this. This angle's 42 degrees. It's a right angle. This is 12. We're looking for this side right here. Since we have a 42 degree angle, it's not a 45 or a 30 or 60. So we're going to have to use SOHCAHTOA. That's your opposite leg. It's your hypotenuse. It's your adjacent leg. Care about the adjacent and the hypotenuse, which is the part of SOHCAHTOA. So we're going to use cosine of our angle, which is 42, equals adjacent over hypotenuse. So x over 12. We grab our calculator, we find the cosine of 42. Comes out to be 0.7431. That equals x over 12. This is one of the easy ones. We put a 1 underneath that, cross multiply. You end up with just x equals 12 times that. And I get about 8.9. So that length of that side is about 8.9 units long. Go back and make sure that our answer makes sense. The 8.9 should be shorter than the hypotenuse, which it is, so seems reasonable. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter B at the top of your paper. If your name starts with a consonant, put the letter B. Problem 22. Give us this picture. Got a right triangle. Altitude drawn to the hypotenuse of that right triangle. This time the altitude we know is 12. This part right here is 8. And we're looking for the whole hypotenuse. A couple different ways you could do this one. I know I'm dealing with the altitude, so I'm going to use the altitude proportion. So the altitude goes here, and the altitude goes here. The way I would do mine is if I find this part from here to there, then I can add this to the 8 to get the whole thing. So I would just find this part, so I'd call it like letter Y or something. And so Y is what I'm looking for. So I'm gonna put 8 here, and I'm gonna put Y down here, and I'm just gonna solve this. 8 times Y is 8Y, 12 times 12 is 144. Divide both sides by 8. 144 divided by 8 equals 18. So Y equals 18, that's this part right here. This part is 18. Well, we didn't want that part, we wanted the whole hypotenuse. So what we gotta do there is add those two together. So 8 plus 18, which is 26. So X equals 26. The other way you could have done it, you could have made this part right here, the whole thing, X minus that part, which is 8, and stuck that in the proportion right here instead of Y and solved it, and it would have given you the same answer. 23. 23, they give us apparently something that's a square. They tell us all these sides are congruent. This side, the diagonal is 22. We're looking for X. We know this is a right angle. Well, that means that this is a 45, 45, 90 triangle. So is this other one over here. Sides across from the 45-degree angle should be labeled L. Side across from the right angle is L times the square root of 2. We know that side, so L times the square root of 2 has to equal 22. Divide both sides by the square root of 2 to get L by itself. Means L equals, you grab your calculator, 22 divided by square root of 2. You end up with 15.6. That means this side over here is 15.6, this side's 15.6. Well, we weren't looking for either one of those sides, but we knew that all 4 of these sides were the same. So that means our X has to also be 15.6. If your name starts with a vowel, put the letter I at the top of your paper. The letter I. If your name started with a vowel. Number 24. They give us this picture. We had one like this earlier on the test. This angle's 60. We got an altitude drawn in here, so that's 90. Well then, if that's 90, this is 60. This angle up here has to be 30. This side's 8. This side's 8. We're looking for this side. Side across from the 30-degree angle has to be labeled L. Side across from the 60-degree angle, L times the square root of 3. That's the side we're looking for. Side across from the right angle is 2L. Well, then we know that 2L has to equal 8. Divide both sides by 2. L has to equal 4. If L equals 4, we stick it right back in there. So it would be 4 times the square root of 3. So X has to equal 4 times radical 3. Number 25. 25, they give us a picture, it looks like this. This is 90, this is 6, this is 11. We're looking for an angle this time. So right away you should know that you're going to use your calculator and you're going to hit second button on your calculator. Side across from that is going to be labeled opposite. Side across from the right angle is the hypotenuse. And then the other side is the adjacent. We care about the opposite and the hypotenuse this time, which is the SO part of our SOHCAHTOA. So sine of our angle, which is X this time, equals opposite over hypotenuse, so 6 over 11. You grab your calculator, you hit second. Sine 6 divided by 11, or 6 ABC button 11. Close your parenthesis, hit equals, and you end up with X equals about 33.1 degrees. So that angle is about 33.1 degrees. If your name starts with a consonant, Your name starts with a consonant. Put the letter Z at the top of your paper if your name starts with a consonant. Number 26. Problem 26 says find the geometric mean for 12 and 27. So we're going to set up this proportion. 12 goes here, 27 goes here. Our geometric mean goes here and here. We just use x normally. X times x is x squared. 12 times 27, grab your calculator. 12 times 27 equals 324. Take the square root of both sides. Square root of x squared is x. Grab your calculator again. Second square root, 324. And you end up with x equals 18. So 18 is the geometric mean. 18 is the number that would fit right there to make both those proportions or both those ratios the same. 27. Find the geometric mean between 20 and 7. So 20 goes here, 7 goes here, x here, x here. Cross multiply, you get x squared. Cross multiply this way, you get 140. Take the square root of both sides. This cancels out, you're left with x equals second square root on your calculator, 140. And you get about 11.8. So x equals about 11.8. Number 28. 24-foot ladder makes a 58-degree angle with the ground. How many feet up the wall will it reach? So we got our wall, got our ladder. 24-foot ladder this time. Makes a 58-degree angle with the ground. And we want to know how high up the wall it goes. So SOHCAHTOA, sine, cosine, tangent. We label our triangle. That's going to be your opposite leg. That's your hypotenuse. This is your adjacent leg. Those are the two we care about, opposite and hypotenuse. So we're going to do sine, the SO part, sine 58 equals x over 24. Take your calculator, find the sine of 58. Get 0.8480 equals x over 24. I just realized that every one I put on this test was the easier of the problems because you didn't have to divide. All you had to do was cross multiply here and it gives your answer on all of them, I think. So you get 1 times x, which is just x. Take your calculator, multiply those other two together, and you get about 20.4. So it reaches up the wall about 20.4 feet. Number 29 says find the measure of the hypotenuse. So we're going to be using a squared plus b squared equals c squared using Pythagorean's theorem. And we're looking for the hypotenuse this time. They tell us a this time. One of the legs is 5, the other leg is 12. And we're looking for the hypotenuse, which is c squared. You could do all that, but if I looked at this and seen, hey, that's 5, that's 12, I know that that fits one of our Pythagorean triples or one of our families, and I know that the hypotenuse, the c, has to be 13. So your answer there for that hypotenuse would be 13. 30. They tell us the two legs this time are 12.5, so 12.5 squared plus 15 squared. We're looking for C. You can punch all this into your calculator all at once. You end up, you got 12.5 squared plus 15 squared, hit equals, you get 381.25. That equals C squared. Find C, you take the square root of both sides. These cancel out, and you're going to be left with just the C, which is your hypotenuse. We want second square root 381.25 equals about 19.5. So the hypotenuse on that triangle would be about 19.5 units long. The bonus question. Letters that you wrote down at the top of your paper, go back now and unscramble them. Unscramble them. They should tell you something. And write down on your paper, write bonus. At the bottom where the two bonus problems are, just mark the two bonus problems out and write that across there. So if they told you, if the letters you wrote down said, you unscrambled them, and they said, Eversole is great, then write that where it says bonus. Hopefully you figure out that's not what it said.